In this video, we're going to have a look at using some spatial effects from the Sound Toys bundle. We're going to start off simply, then we're going to build up the complexity. So the first sound we're going to look at is just a nice basic slap delay using Echo Boy. But I'm going to show you some neat tricks that we can use in order to get this just right. So slap delay allows us to add some depth to a vocal without adding reverb. Now reverb's great, but if everything has reverb on, it quickly clutters up a mix. So in my own music, I often try to combine delays with reverbs, with choruses, with doublers and things like that to create space without having to fill everything with reverb. Now I say the fewer elements you can get away with putting reverb on, the better. And it's actually best to be able to really clearly hear the reverbs. If you find you're putting reverbs on and you can't actually really hear them, then there's not really much point in putting them on because they're just creating clutter and taking away headroom for everything else to be louder. So yeah, a combination of choruses, delays, early reflections, doublers, things like that allow you to take away the need for having just reverb to add space, essentially. We're going to demonstrate this with this track here. Now, I'm going to put a instance of Echo Boy, just do it mono, onto our lead vocal. So we're going to work on this part of the track. Let's have a listen. Just bypass Echo Boy.
She's stomping on a bed of roses, posters full of realness she opposes, sick of living life going through the motions.
Okay, so let's bring Echo Boy back in. Now, let me show you this. I have an app here which is known as Music Math. Now, you could get equivalents of this. I think there's iPhone apps that do it as well. But this one I find very useful. It just sits on my dock and I open it whenever I need it. Now, this allows you to calculate in milliseconds delay times or reverb times or whatever it might be. It basically allows you to work out how much beats of the bar are worth in milliseconds. Now, it could be compressor release times as well as another very useful way of applying this. So our tempo is 130. Now, I don't think this was played to a click, but I've kind of worked it out and it's around 130. So now this can tell us that, let's say, a 16th note at 130 beats per minute is worth 115.38 milliseconds. A 32nd note, 57 milliseconds. Now, slap delay falls kind of in this territory, so somewhere maybe around 40, 60 milliseconds up to about 120, 130 milliseconds. Now, if it gets too much above that, it starts to sound like a delay in its own right. There's too much separation between the sound and the delay, and too much the other way, so too fast, it ends up merging with the sound and creating almost a phasey, chorusy kind of effect. So let's try these two values and see what we come up with. So go into Echo Boy. Now I'm going to take it off being aligned to the grid, and now it's just working in milliseconds by pressing on this time button here. Now this is going to allow us to input the time as milliseconds. So let's start off with 115. Now just to make sure you understand this, 115 milliseconds is the value of a 16th note, so we're going to be doing it in time with the music. Okay, I'll bring the mix down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is bring this in and bring this out so you can hear the effect.
She's stomping on the bed of roses, posters full of realness she opposes, sick of living life going through the motions. I know she won't marry him. She's stomping on the bed of roses, posters full of realness she opposes, sick of living life going through the motions.
Okay. And let's try the other value, which was 57. Okay.
She's stomping on the bed of roses, posters full of realness she opposes, sick of living life going through the motions. I know she won't marry.
Again, I'm going to bring it in and out.
She's stomping on the bed of roses, posters full of realness she opposes, sick of living life going through the motions. I know she won't marry him.
Now what you're listening for is the sense of depth you get when I bring in the effect. So it allows the vocal to come forward out of the mix a little bit and it kind of lifts it away from the instrumentation. And it does that by creating that kind of sense of front-back perspective. So once again, shut your eyes and listen. What you're listening for is depth and also the way the vocal comes forward.
She's stomping on the bed of roses, posters full of realness she opposes.
So it just really nicely lifts the vocal up, brings it out. Now, the way we set this up, we don't have any feedback for a slap delay effect. Well, you can obviously do what you want, but generally we don't have any feedback because we don't want to hear the delay kind of repeats over and over again. We just want to hear a single slap back that you'd get if you were kind of speaking and sound was coming back off the wall at you. Now, what we could also try doing is EQing this. Now, it's a good idea to try and EQ your effects returns because otherwise you end up cluttering the mix again. So you don't necessarily have to have lots of low frequencies and high frequencies in your slap delay. You might want to, you might not, but you could definitely try just kind of taming the lows and the highs. Let's see if we can do that in the mix.
She's stomping on the bed of roses. Posters full of realness she opposes. Sick of living life going through the motions.
Just going to put it in solo for a sec.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Posters full of realness she opposes. Sick of living life going through the motions. I know she don't wanna marry him. She's stomping on a bed of roses. Posters full of realness she opposes. Sick of living life going through the motions.
Okay, what we could also try doing is adding some saturation. So we talked about saturation in the last few videos, so we're going to add harmonics, add fatness.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Posters full of realness she opposes. Sick of living life going through the motions. I know she don't want. She's stomping on a bed of roses. Posters full of realness she opposes. Sick of living life going through the motions. I know she don't want to marry him.
Okay, what we could also try doing, of course, is playing with the style as well. So we could try some different flavors of delay.
She's stomping on the bed of roses. Posters full of realness she opposes. Sick of living life going through.
I think for this track, I want to keep it quite transparent and clean and not too coloured. So we'll leave it on the studio tape. Okay, so that's our basic slap delay effect, which is perfect in Echo Boy. Sounds amazing. Now we're going to have a look at adding a vocal double effect. We're going to do that using Crystallizer. Now, whereas before we were using Echo Boy to add a slap delay in mono, the Crystallizer is going to kind of follow the same principle of adding that front-back perspective, but we're also going to add in stereo width as well. So if you have the space in your mix down to add some extra stereo width to a sound, this could be a great way to go. So let's have a listen to it in solo just with the default patch.
She's stomping on the bed of roses.
Okay, so this is sounding more like a traditional delay at the moment. Now the way Crystallizer works is by sampling grains of sound, what it calls splices. And then we can delay these. We can add kind of feedback in a traditional delay sense, but also we can pitch shift these grains of sound as well. And it's the pitch shifting which can be great for adding that kind of chorus style effect. Now, whereas before we used music math to calculate in milliseconds the beats of the bar, say an 8th note or a 16th note, this time we're just going to do it with the controls directly. So let's say we want to make this a 16th note, so it's sampling 16th note splices of sound, and then we can delay these, let's say, by a 30-second note. Let's have a listen to how this sounds.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Posters full of realness she opposes. Sick of living life.
Okay, now, importantly, we have a reverse and forward control here. Now, at the moment, this is reversing the grains of sound, but I'm going to put it to forward because in this case, we actually want the sound to be quite natural. And ordinarily, I find reverse better for more kind of esoteric special effects. Let's also open the tweak control here as well.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Posters full of realness she opposes. Sick of living life going through the motions.
So you can really hear what that's adding already, and it makes a big difference having this set to forward rather than reverse. Now, underneath the tweak controls here, we have some extra parameters. We can actually add a pitch offset. Now, this allows us to add plus and minus 13 cents in this case to the left and the right hand channels. And this is what helps us create the chorus effect.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Forces pull her in as she poses.
Because the more you have difference between the left and the right hand channel, the more that equates to extra stereo width. So let's try just a small amount, 10 cents.
She's stomping on a bed of roses.
And we can also add a splice offset and a delay offset to the right channel, which will again create differences between the two.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Forces pull her in as she poses. Sick of living life, going through the motions. I know she don't want to marry.
But let's add some of this smoothing to create a more natural kind of smooth effect.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Forces pull her in as she poses. Sick of living life, going through the motions.
Okay, let's try filtering it a little bit. Again, try and kind of bed the sound in. Take away some of the frequencies you don't necessarily need from this part.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Forces pull her in as she poses. Sick of living life, going.
Let's even try speeding up the splice time.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Forces pull her in as she poses. Sick of living life, going through.
We don't need too much of this recycle here because we don't want to have too many kind of delay taps. We want it to be more of a single tap sound.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Forces pull her in as she poses. Sick of living life.
So with a sound like this, you actually want it to be more felt than heard. You don't want to necessarily go, oh, look, there's a cool stereo effect. You just want to have the vocal sounding really nice and wide without it actually being kind of an obvious effect. Let's do it in the track. And you can hear again that depth is being added, the vocal come forward, but also in this case some stereo width. I'll leave it out to start with and then bring it in.
She's stomping on a bed of roses. Forces pull her in as she poses. Sick of living life, going through the motions. I know she don't want to marry him. She's stomping on a bed of roses. Forces pull her in as she poses. Sick of living life, going through the motions. I know she don't want to marry him. She's stomping on a bed of roses.
Adds a really nice space to the vocal. So this is the tried and tested technique. There's lots of plugins that do this, but Crystallizer is just amazing at doing it. It has that really nice kind of analog sound to it. Okay, so that is adding a really nice doubler effect using Crystallizer. So just finally on these kind of spatial effects, let's grab electric guitar part here. I'm just going to make my waveforms bigger so we can see it.
Go again.
Okay, so another plugin we could use from our Sound Toys arsenal is Microshift. Now this is more of a traditional chorus style effect, so we can dial in the amount we want. Choose where it's going to be focused in the frequency spectrum. And we've got 3 different styles to choose from. I like that one style there, and a detune amount. And also delay. So this is again creating something similar to that crystallizer doubler effect, but we don't have as much control over the parameters here. But again, we're adding interest to the sound, stereo width to the sound, and we're also helping to kind of bed it into the mix essentially. Let's do it in context. Now this is not necessarily the right sound to use it on in this mix, but let's see what it sounds like.
Go again. Some of us love and some just friends. We ain't got to go again. Some of us love and some just friends. And so
It actually works pretty nicely on that sound. So that's microshift, which we can use to add a chorus effect. Now, of course, we can chain these plugins together, and we're going to have a look at the effects rack a little bit later on. But there's nothing stopping us placing, let's say, Echo Boy with a slap delay followed by the microshift. So whenever you want to push something out to the sides a bit, make it a little bit wider, kind of just a little bit less focused in an area, essentially. That's what these stereo effects can do as well, is if you have a sound which is too focused in an area and a bit too kind of pokey and annoying, you can help spread it using these stereo effects. So anytime you want to do that to a sound, adding microshift or crystallizer using the kind of settings we were looking at, that can really help kind of push things out to the sides, spread them, kind of just stop them being so pokey in the mix, or of course add stereo width if that's what you're going for. Okay, so that's part one of our spatial effects looked at. In the next video, we're going to have a look at some of the other plugins we can use as spatial effects, if we're looking for reverbs, and also things that we can use to create rhythmic interest like pan effects and tremolo effects. Thanks for watching.